Okay, this poem is called A Man by Nina Cassian. The first thing we're going to do is predict what the poem's about. So, the title makes me think of the idea of every man or all men, ordinary people, basically just not one man in particular. A Man by Nina Cassian. While fighting for his country, he lost an arm and was suddenly afraid. From now on, I shall only be able to do things by halves. I shall reap half a harvest. I shall be able to play either the tune or the accompaniment on the piano, but never both parts together. I shall be able to bang with only one fist on doors, and worst of all, I shall only be able to half hold my love close to me. There will be things I cannot do at all. Applaud, for example. At shows where everyone applauds. From that moment on, he set himself to do everything with twice as much enthusiasm, and where the arm had been torn away, a wing grew. Okay, before we begin the TP-CASTT strategy for reading, I'd like to ask you a couple questions. What's the challenge of his life now after the war? If I was going to answer this question as a student, I would say maybe something along the lines of, the fact that he's lost an arm and a lot of our men come back from battle missing limbs, or they've, been blown off, or they come home and they have PTSD and they have to deal with challenges when they come home. The next thing I would ask is, what is the effect of having the last 4 lines of the poem as a new stanza? As you'll see, here's one, here's the second one. I think the first one is maybe his thinking and the dialogue that he shares out loud. The next one is kind of the second part of his life. So now that this has happened, he has to, just start over again. Finally, before we begin the TP-CASTT strategy, if you will please underline the last 2 lines of the poem. Do you think that the author intends you to take these literally for denotation or figuratively like the connotation? And where the arm had been torn away, a wing grew. Is that literal? Can that literally happen? No, of course not. So I think that would be more figurative or connotation than literal. Okay, finally we're going to do the TP-CASTT strategy. So now we're over here. Okay, title. It says to think about the title before you read the poem. What do you think the poem might be about? As I already answered, the title makes me think of the idea of every man, all men, ordinary people. So I would just put all men, no one in particular. Secondly, paraphrase. Read the poem and paraphrase parts of it you find difficult. Put it into your own words. Examine the punctuation for clues about who is speaking and the idea expressed. A man has lost an arm during a war. He speaks of being afraid he will only be able to do things by halves from now on, but his resolve is to work twice as hard at the things of his life. From that decision, the man lives life more fully than most. The next is connotation. Highlight words or phrases you see as significant. Think about their connotations. What ideas and feelings do you associate with the words? If you'll notice, I went ahead and circled the words in green. Half, halves, twice, wing. Those are words that are going to be significant in connotation. Next, we have attitude. What is the speaker's attitude toward the situation? And we called this tone the past couple of days. At the beginning, he's said to be afraid. By the end, he may be described as resolved, determined, unafraid, brave, resigned, inspired, hopeful. Any of these you can use. Next, we have the S, or shifts. Are there shifts in speakers? In other words, does the person speaking change within the poem? Or does the attitude of the speaker change anywhere in the poem? If so, draw a line where the shift occurs and explain the shift in the My Notes section. If you'll notice, there's a shift from third-person narrator to first-person speaker, which seems to be the voice of the injured soldier, and back to third person by the end of the poem. A shift in tone also occurs at the end of line 15. The voice of fear and the sense of loss shift to an attitude of resolved and a sense of enthusiasm and rebirth, so that he can begin his life again. T for title. Look at the title again. How have your ideas about the meaning of the title changed? The title maintains its sense that this man is every man, that this man's experience is intended to be inspirational to all people who live with a tragic loss, not just those that come back from battle. It is this man's positive response to a life-altering challenge that makes all the difference. Finally, we have the last T for theme. What is the poet saying? What is the overall message or theme of the poem? The following are possible answers. I came up with people conquer their greatest fears by resolving to have a positive outlook. Out of great tragedy can come a new spirit of determination and hope. One can overcome one's greatest fears by changing one's attitude to enthusiastic self-acceptance. Or finally, physical challenges can be overcome through a change in attitude. Okay, now that I showed you this TP-CASTT strategy, you're going to go on to the next poem and try it yourself. Please find the 4th page called Moko Limping About a Dog. You're going to do this one on your own, so good luck.